Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 4113. Today's date is June 20, 2026. It's been almost like a night at exactly 10:52 p.m. Okay, let's just jump into the question. Let's go. All right. So, question is, how can teamwork make this better? This better means like how can teamwork kind of like add value in your life and things and that it's kind of like that question. All right, yeah, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? A couple of days ago I read a book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and I wanted to implement the value that book taught me. How do I do that? By asking question to myself and giving the honest answer. So I went to ChatGPT. I said that okay, this is a book that I read. I wanted to implement the value. Suggest me 20 question. ChatGPT kind of like suggest me 20 question. This is one of those question. Now in this book, the kind of like assembly author Stephen Covey kind of like mentioned synergy. Synergy is a kind of like a things that key author believe that key kind of like a when you combine together, multiple people comes together, you kind of like a create something really good. Okay, my opinion is a little bit different. Oh yeah, I believe in teamwork, but kind of like a different way. Okay, what exactly is this thing? What exactly that? Okay, I am kind of like a try to tell you from my point of perspective. Okay, in my situation in future life, how is kind of like a things happen, I'm gonna tell you. Okay, yeah. So basically in the future I have to be run a company. Okay, Artifact. Okay, Artifact is a kind of like a company I have to be run. Okay, yeah. There are multiple people are working there. Some people might gonna develop the application, some people kind of like assembly try to figure it out, the try to maintain the backend server, front end server. Okay, yeah, these are kind of like things to kind of like yeah, I don't know about the structure of regarding about the startup and things and that, but this is kind of like a I'm trying to tell you. Okay, yeah. Obviously, I will not gonna kind of like run this application just by myself. Definitely not. I need a people. Obviously, I need my team. That team will kind of like really help me to not only just build my application but as well as kind of like assembly distribute and kind of like manage everything. Okay, yeah. So how do I supposed to do that? How do I supposed to kind of like build this team? Well, first of all, at the beginning, I am kind of like a developing my application by myself. Okay, yeah. Thank God I have kind of like a agent. Okay, AI agents. AI agents are kind of like a helping me to build my application. So which is really good. So basically, this thing I am building my application, and I am kind of like a simply publish my application on Play Store by myself without even kind of like a help from somebody. Nothing really at all. The team I will gonna need when kind of like when I started earning money, because right now I'm not earning any money. I don't really have any kind of like things. I have idea, I am building my application up. I will upload this application on Play Store. People will gonna download, and people might gonna kind of like started recording kind of like their artifact and things and that. At the beginning I kind of like somebody try to found a kind of like an investor, at least like a like it investor to kind of like somebody fund money on my application and things and that. I'm not kind of like expecting too much amount of money, but at least some certain amount of money that kind of like somebody that key I would run my application in all around the world and things and that. Okay, how will this thing actually happen? Well, basically, it's kind of like a pretty easy. Okay, yeah. You already have a kind of like a server, backend server, and things and that. And obviously, is this thing when the millions of user will kind of like uh, generate the traffic in my application, then obviously I need a kind of like a more server who could kind of like run those things and that server cost me some sort of amount of money, not too much but some sort of amount of money. Obviously I don't really have that money, so for that particular purpose I need money for running that server, as well as kind of like a simply front end and back end and lot of things, not just kind of like a things, but like right now I am building my application on Android platform. Okay, iOS platform, like this is kind of like a very different. I'm not really sure what kind of like a challenges do I face when I will kind of like build this application for iOS version, Mac OS version. So there is a kind of like a lot of problem. Obviously I need a kind of like a people. So which people will kind of like somebody that you will gonna hire? Well, regarding about the money, okay, obviously I have to figure it out about the money. Okay, money is a very much essential, and I don't really have any kind of like a money. I am kind of like a somebody, I will kind of like a utilize my saving and things, but probably is this thing that key my main source is that key I would kind of like basically before I get the investor, okay, I would kind of like run my application on advertisement. Obviously my application will always be run on advertisement. Oh yeah, it's work on AVOD platform. What's the AVOD platform? AVOD platform means like that ki like a user can consume the content, in return they will kind of like see the advertisement, and whenever they see the advertisement are kind of like paying me money. Okay, yeah, and I will kind of like simply run this server and run this application and things and that. Okay, so basically is this thing at the beginning probably I might gonna earn from advertisement probably. Okay, yeah, investor would be kind of like a come later, at least from my point of perspective. So regarding about the whatever the money that I get from advertisement, um I have to be kind of like a something, like a how many people that you kind of like a something, how many kind of like a something people that you might gonna hire. At the beginning the people would be kind of like a people who are kind of like a building application specifically in iOS platform, and same goes with a kind of like a and developer. Okay, I need a kind of like a developer. uh, Good thing is that he right now I have kind of like a AI agents, and AI agents are kind of like a something kind of like a helping me a lot. So instead of kind of like a hiring a kind of like a 10-20 people, I don't need a 10-20 people, at least like a 5 people. Okay, 4 to 5 people is hard enough to kind of like a build the application. So I need at least like a 4 to 5 people are developer. Also regarding about in the further future, if I really required more, then I will gonna hire more, but at the beginning I might gonna kind of like a hire at least like a two two or three probably Android developer. Okay, so that they will kind of like a build the application. iOS platform, Android platform I already built it. Okay, yeah, but kind of like a something, yeah, like a basically making sure that iOS platform application and Android platform application somewhat something same. So yeah, I need at least like a 2 or 3 Android developer. Okay, yeah. Then another thing is that key, I need a kind of like a something, CFO. Okay, yeah, Chief Financial Officer. Okay, what's the Chief Financial Officer? Like a CFO is like a basically I will be a CEO. Okay, yeah, because I built this application, I am the founder and things, so I am the CEO. Now basically the and I need a kind of like a somebody CFO. What's the CFO? I am not really sure what the CFO does. Okay, probably a kind of like a something financial thing. I think that might be okay, because regarding about the kind of like a something the whatever the kind of like a plan, like basically is this thing na ki in the movie, okay, I have kind of like a designation know about the movie, but I didn't know regarding about the business context point of perspective. Okay, but I'm trying to let somewhat something same. Okay, as a director is a kind of like a captain of the ship who is the soul of the story, and who kind of like a making sure that key story kind of like a look exactly as he kind of like a vision. Okay, producer is a kind of like a some person who kind of like a fund the money for his vision, like whatever the money really required for kind of like making sure that movie kind of like a game. So producer is a kind of like a fund the money. So same thing that ki CFO is a kind of like a particular person who kind of like a fund the money. Now then who is the investor? Like a investor is kind of like investing money, na, right? Well, investor is kind of like investing money, and he also take the kind of like a some certain portion of your company. What is actually portion of your company? Like you establish this company, so you have a complete right for your company. Okay, let's say 100%. Okay, so whatever the kind of like a company will kind of like earn money, that money is yours because you created it. Okay, but when the investor is actually investing money, they need a kind of like a something that collateral property, or kind of like a something things, a kind of like a thing why they will kind of like invest money. They need a kind of like a something portion of your company. Okay, like a 2%, 1%, or things and that. Okay, so whenever kind of like a somebody the company will kind of like earn money, they will also kind of like a get whatever the percentage that they have, like let's just say 2%, then 2% of the money that they get. Okay, because they kind of like invested before. Okay, then this is the kind of like investor. Then what is actually CFO does? CFO might fund the kind of like a manage the fund, like a whatever the money kind of like a came from the revenue or profit, or whatever the expenses that it gets, like a salary, server, lot of things, office and things and that. So probably CFO is a kind of like a particular person might be handling the financial everything regarding about that. I don't know regarding about what is actually their credibility, what does they do, I'm not really sure about that thing. Okay, so this is kind of like a somebody that. Okay, now at the moment, and another is a manager who could manage the kind of like a developer and things and that. At the moment, I just know the kind of like a couple of designation, that's it, not really that much. Okay, when I will kind of like a build the application, I will study regarding about how to kind of like a designation happen, what is actually the kind of like a work and profile and things and that. Okay, these are kind of like a things. Okay, whatever. So I will kind of like basically this thing, these are kind of like a office structure and things and that. Okay, and probably my office structure is not kind of like a very different than another. It's a kind of like a same as it is. Okay, not really that much. Okay, now the question kind of like a very much differently. The question kind of like a says that key, do you believe in teamwork or not? Okay, if you believe in your teamwork, then like what exactly, like basically you kind of like mentioned that na ki like you have kind of like a different opinion regarding about teamwork and things and that. What is actually your opinion? It's not kind of like simply like a different opinion. No, it's a like it's not. Okay, let me kind of like a tell. This is just an idea in front of like inside of me. Okay, I'm not really sure I will gonna implement this thing or not. Okay, I will gonna say. Okay, in the kind of like a something, whatever the kind of like a something the company will decide. Okay, as a company will decide, or kind of like a me or CFO decide, or whatever the kind of like a decision that it decide, I wanted to hire a one person, and that one person has a kind of like a one job. And what is actually that job? That job is that he kind of like a criticize me in anything or any decision that company took. Any decision that it took, like let's just say, okay, so basically is this thing, a company will kind of like decide something that we wanted to implement this feature. Okay, now this particular person have one job that he has to be say no or he has to be kind of like a criticize the things. Okay, yeah. And basically he has to be find out like this his particular person have a one job that he say no, and he have to show the evidence that ki why he say no and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. And this particular person has a very important thing, because without his signature the implementation will not gonna happen. Okay, yeah. So like, and I want that particular person, I wanted to hire that particular person just to say no, just to say no. Okay, why is that? Why am I wanting to hire this particular person, and why is this thing? Okay, yeah. Because it kind of like a create the bottleneck na, like if the kind of like a something like the company wanted to kind of like add a kind of like a feature or implement something, then this particular person might gonna create a chaos, or might gonna create a kind of like a resistance, right? Yeah. Then why are you kind of like wanting to hire this particular person and things and that and that? It's essential. Okay, that particular sir will not be me. Okay, why? Because of that ki I am kind of like a have feature, I will kind of like implement the value or things and that, but this particular person will not be me, will be very different person. Different person means like that ki he is an integral part of the company, but he has a kind of like a some authority that ki without his signature implementation will not gonna happen. Okay, yeah. Obviously I have a power that I will kind of like a bypass his kind of like a things and kind of like a let proceed. Okay, yeah. But basically is this thing that key like okay, like basically is this thing that key I don't know how to I don't know, I kind of like a crazy or what, I'm not really sure, but I don't know, is kind of like a some listening my instinct are kind of like a telling me, I'm not sure that instinct, I don't know where am I get this idea, I am not really sure. Just I'm thinking about so many times, but I never really talk about that particular stuff. Okay, now let me tell you one thing, why is that particular person kind of like always say no, always kind of like a said, always kind of like a create the resistance, why that particular person's kind of like a do that thing. Okay, so let me tell you one thing now, ki let's just say monetization program. Okay, yeah. Now I wanted to implement the monetization program that key how does kind of like so many people who kind of like record the artifact, how they kind of like earn money and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now I have a kind of like a somebody that key plan that key how does kind of like a people who kind of like record the artifact, a creator, how they kind of like earn money. Okay, yeah. I have a plan, I would kind of like tell to the team, this particular person says no. Okay, yeah. And he does not say no, he have to show me the evidence that if I do this, then what wrong will gonna happen. Okay, yeah. Let me tell you one thing. Okay, yeah. When you try to do research, when you do a research, you are kind of like doing a research on something that you wanted to find. Okay, yeah, something that you wanted to find. Okay, like basically is this thing that key every implementation, okay, or execution process have a kind of like a good execution process, bad execution process. Okay, or good implementation plan, bad implementation plan. Okay, yeah. And most of the people are really confused regarding about which execution plan is good, a good execution plan or bad execution plan. People might gonna say that okay, this is a really good execution plan, but actually that is a kind of like a simply bad execution plan. Okay, yeah. And the most of people are kind of like a simply not to understand what is actually good execution plan and bad execution plan. This particular person that I will gonna hire, that particular person will kind of like a tell me this is a wrong, even if on the paper it looks really good, even if in the kind of like a something the simulation program it's really good, even if in the reality it's good everywhere, it kind of like look really good, but this particular person will gonna say me no, and he has a job that he always say no, always say no, always say no, even if I'm kind of like a show all the evidence, everything that this plan will gonna succeed, this plan will gonna succeed, this plan will gonna succeed, he has only one job to say no. He has only one job to say no, and he has to be stick with that, and he have to kind of like show me all the evidence and things and that and that and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now obviously it's this thing, I will bypass his kind of like a decision and kind of like implement that thing. But because of he kind of like create that resistance, and from that resistance I will understand that ki, okay, the whatever the kind of like this particular person says might be a right. I have to be look out again. I have to look from different point of perspective. Okay, yeah. Because of sometimes na, when you are really excited, or when you are kind of like a thing that it might gonna work, you are really excited, and because of you are really excited, at the spur of the moment you took the decision and you just do it. But in reality that is not. Okay, yeah. The everything really good looks in the PowerPoint presentation, everything really good look in simulation, everything look really good on paper, but in reality it's very different. Lot of things might gonna, lot of stuff will gonna happen. Example, yeah, I am living in India, so I'm kind of like telling you from Indian context point of perspective. Okay, yeah. So usually in India there is a kind of like a somebody in a politician are kind of like a playing very dirty games. What exactly they are playing dirty game? Okay, yeah. Is this thing that key they are kind of like a try to kind of like a get most of the vote bank. Okay, yeah. And what are they are doing for getting the most of the vote bank? They are kind of like a giving the money to the women. Okay, yeah. Why? Because of that key giving the money to the man, it doesn't look right, because usually men are kind of like a not utilizing the money for right purposes, but women are very cautious regarding about where should we supposed to be spend money. I'm telling you from Indian context point of perspective, and usually women's are here are little bit kind of like something vulnerable. Okay, yeah. So government or maybe political parties are kind of like giving the money to the women, so that women kind of like assembly kind of like say that ki, this political party is really good, and we have to kind of like give them vote. Okay, and yeah, so kind of like a political party are kind of like playing this kind of like silly game. Okay, yeah. Now tell me, is it right thing or wrong thing? Well, from political point of perspective it is the right thing, because you are kind of like creating a vote bank, and those kind of like women are kind of like giving the kind of like voting things. Okay, yeah, voting. But why, like why not male? Male is a kind of like things are kind of like very manipulative. Okay, yeah. They might have kind of like some things that this political party would be really good, and next day like, this party would be really good, because their opinion might gonna change according to the what kind of like a political party will kind of like add value in their life. Okay, yeah. But women does not do that. Women are kind of like somebody thinking about stability and things and that. So usually they kind of like a target a woman, and as also is this thing in India, usually in the political party women are kind of like a somebody higher vote bank as compared to male. Male has also higher vote bank too, but still is this thing that na ki, I don't know why, but kind of like a thing is that na ki it's not really right. Political party might decided that it's not really right to kind of like give them money to the kind of like a something the male, so they decided to give the money to the kind of like a somebody women. Okay, yeah. And they have kind of like a somebody yojana called kind of like a something that ki like a Bahinini Yojana, Tai Yojana, what exactly is this thing? Like basically in this kind of like a thing, in this thing, the kind of like a political party kind of like a give almost like a 1,500 rupees, okay, which is closely up to almost like a probably like a like basically like a basically $20, if I'm kind of like a thinking that key 20 and yeah $20, yeah, 20-25, I'm not really sure, but yeah. So they are kind of like giving them that much amount of money per month. Okay, now basically obviously 1,500 rupees of money is not really that much amount of money. Okay, yeah. but they are kind of like a giving that money to the every women in specifically in Maharashtra. Okay, yeah. So let's just say how much kind of like a population that they have, specifically women, almost like 100 million. Okay, yeah, 100 million. So if I'm try to kind of like somebody do the multiplication, $20. Okay, let's say kind of like let's do the mathematics, na. Okay, yeah. First of all, let me check that key. Do dollar into INR. Okay, so I have how much money? Like a 1,500. So almost like a $15, $16. Okay, let's say $16. So $16. Wait, where is the calculator? Calculator. Okay, so $16 into how much? Let's say kind of like assembly 100 million. Okay, 100 million was too much. Probably 100 million. Yeah, like a population, like a women population in Maharashtra. Like let's Google women population in Maharashtra. Okay, would be like basically 62 million. Okay, yeah, 62 million. Okay, these are kind of like a 62 million are all over the kind of like everyone, every kind of like a women, but the yojana is actually specifically for kind of like a garib varg, like basically the below poverty level of women. So usually how much is that? Like a kind of like a somewhat something half. So let's just say 30 million. Okay, yeah. So if I'm kind of like a say that key 30 million, $16 into 30 million, how many zero? How many zero in million? 1 2 3 4, the 30,000, 300, 300,000, 3 million. Okay, like 3 million na, 3 lakh, 3 lakh, 3 lakh. Okay, so this is a kind of like a 30 lakh. एक 30 लाख, एकक दशक शतक हजार दश हजार लक्ष दशलक्ष, सॉरी एकक दशक शतक हजार दश हजार लक्ष दशलक्ष. So basically is this thing that key, wait, I need a kind of like a something, do the Google. Okay, yeah. 16 dollar into 6, how many? 30 million. Yeah, 30 EMIL, 30 million. So how much would be? It would be kind of like a say, this Google is not kind of like a giving me a right thing. Let me do ChatGPT. ChatGPT is kind of like a really good. 16 into 30 million. 16 to 30 million. ChatGPT says, okay, why it's taking so much time? Come on. It's taking so much amount of time. ChatGPT is stuck. It's okay, now it says that key 480 million. Okay, so basically is this thing that key okay, right now I'm kind of like getting okay. Okay, sorry about the pauses and everything, all those things. Okay, let me tell you one thing. So basically the political party are kind of like paying almost like a $16 per month on almost like a 32 million women's bank account. Okay, yeah. 30 like I kind of like a round figure as a kind of like a 30 million below poverty level. Okay. uh, why I choose 30 million? Okay, yeah, there is no kind of like a things. Well, like the average population, like a population of the Maharashtra, I'm specifically kind of like telling you from Maharashtra state perspective, 62 million population, but in the 62, below poverty level is a kind of like a half of the kind of like a population. So probably I took half. Okay, yeah, I I might have kind of like a somebody maybe kind of like a maybe kind of like a maybe 25 million or maybe something like that. But let's do the calculation. Okay, let's do the calculation. Okay, so I took kind of like a 30 million. Might be my calculation, it's kind of like a little bit average, but still. Okay, yeah. So basically it's this thing that ki 30 million women I have, and I'm spending almost like a 16 million, sorry, $16 per month. So basically is this thing in one go, means in kind of like a somebody in 1 month I am spending almost like a 480 million dollar, 480 million dollar per month, 480 million. Like, is it kind of like a dollar plus 30? Yeah, like a basically 480 million dollar per month. And if I'm kind of like a thinking from kind of like basically for like a how much like a this yojana was kind of like a for almost like a 3 to 4, like almost like a 6 months. So almost like a 400 probably would be cost almost like a billion probably. But I'm not really sure. It kind of like says 48 crore in Indian numbering system. Okay, still that is a very big number. Okay, but the problem is that now what exactly is this thing that he, instead of kind of like a giving this money directly to their kind of like a bank account, that kind of like a create very wrong thing. Why? Because of that ki the women, the BPL kind of like a woman, the below poverty level of women, they are kind of like a previously they kind of like a do a job, do a job, do a kind of like a rozgar and things and that to kind of like a survive themselves and things and that right now why they will kind of like a do a job. The government is kind of political parties actually giving them money, free money on their bank account and things and that. So basically why they will kind of like a do a job. Okay, so because of they are kind of like a getting money, they are kind of like a getting laziness. And when they're kind of like a getting lazy, then the growth will not gonna happen, because growth does not come from money, it comes from the effort, and effort come from the human. Okay, so basically is this thing, this is kind of like a very wrong idea. Instead of kind of like a giving them money, kind of like a give them a kind of like a simply a cylinder, or kind of like a LPG cylinder would be kind of like a much more better, because LPG cylinder, it kind of like a cost less. Okay, yeah, like a basically it cost almost like a 800 rupees. Okay, and also another thing is that na ki LPG cylinder is a kind of like a somebody really helping for kind of like all the below poverty level of women. They are kind of like utilizing a chulha and things and that chulha, because of that they kind of like got tuberculosis or any kind of like a health hazard will gonna happen. Okay, yeah. So LPG is not only kind of like a save the life, but it also kind of like a somebody add effort or value to the economy and things and that. When they will kind of like become really healthy, they will kind of like put the effort and things and that. Also they will kind of like make the food from themselves to for their family and things and that. So this is a kind of like a really good thing. Instead of kind of like a LPG cylinder, they are kind of like simply giving them directly amount of money, and that is a completely wrong thing, completely wrong thing. And in India they are kind of like playing this kind of like a every kind of like a government or political party are kind of like playing these dirty games and things and that which kind of like a crippled Indian economy and things and that. So basically, do you understand? This is a completely wrong thing. Okay, yeah. Then why does kind of like a politician are kind of like agree with this thing? Because they don't really have that particular person. They kind of like tell us that you did something wrong. Okay, yeah. So that's why, because in the future I wanted to do so many things and so many kind of like a decision that I will gonna do. I need that particular person, because that particular person will kind of like create me that bottleneck. Because in the future I don't want to kind of like create a rational decision. Okay, because who will gonna stop me? Nothing really at all, because I am the CEO. I will gonna do anything at all and things and that. But that particular person will kind of like stop me. Okay, yeah, because he always gonna say no to me. Okay, even if I'm kind of like a say right in every possible scenario, he has only one job to say no to me, and he have to be kind of like a giving me all the evidence and things and that. Obviously I would kind of like a bypass his kind of like decision, but still is this thing that he kind of like a create the resistance for me, and it kind of like a really add value in me. I would kind of like a some believe like yeah, and in my team I would gonna hire that particular person, okay, yeah, to kind of like always say no to me, okay, yeah. Okay, so right now this is kind of like a structure regarding about what I think about the teamwork and things. I need my teamwork to kind of like a think about different point of perspective and things and that looking at the problem and things, because I don't know what kind of like a problem I might gonna face in the future regarding about the artifact and things and that. So yeah, whatever, this is it, this is my opinion. I have to end here, and thank you.